Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. Growing up as a child, my family struggled with constantly moving around the country because of the nature of my dad's work. My brother and I were constantly hassled by finding new friends, moving to new schools, getting attached to people, and then being driven away from them. That was until our early teen years, as my brother and I were born a year apart. When we were 13 and 12, my little family and I settled in a city that we would call our home forever. When we did, we quickly realized that our neighbors had a son who was roughly around my brother's age, who ended up being in the same classroom as him. Needless to say, their friendship developed really quickly, and they ended up being really tight-knit in the first few weeks. They spent every day for the following few years together, and to put it in simple words, this new neighbor's son, aka my brother's best friend, was now the brother that he never had nor asked for. I can really say that I was ever jealous of him, as my relationship with my brother was healthy and untouchable no matter what. I was quite tomboyish myself, so I found a good spot for myself within their relationship, and everything fell right into place. Now, high school in my country works in a 3-year system, the first, secondary, and final year. During my brother's secondary year, he ended up getting kidney cancer and ended up painfully passing away a few months after. That left my family torn and devastated by the events that led to his painful death and our inevitable demise and destruction. And luckily for my parents, my brother's best friend, aka our neighbor, took on the role of an entire support system. He was always there to make sure all the help and emotional support my parents could ever need was provided. He would be there the minute they called him, and he offered to help with pretty much anything around the house or outside of it. Not with the intent of replacing my brother, but to help ease the struggle of coping with his absence, which was extremely sweet of him and probably the most considerate thing anyone has done for our little family. The year following that was the last year of high school for him, and the year everybody would be frantically running around trying to save up and get admitted into universities, as unis are extremely demanding and tedious to manage. Just before the summer began, my neighbor's son walked up to my parents and informed them that he had been admitted into one of the most demanding and prestigious universities in the country. The fact that he managed to get admitted was impressive in and of itself. My parents found the grace in their hearts to feel extremely joyous for their neighbor's son, and expressed all of the emotions that had overrushed them when they realized how things have changed. The reality in which the neighbor's son was applying to universities and getting admitted, and their son who had always imagined to go through the process with him, was now dead. With that rush of emotions and joyous expressions, my parents decided it would be a righteous decision to offer him full funding when he expressed to tell them that he would barely be able to pay for the first semester. They had saved enough money for my brother and I's tuition since we were born, so when he told them the amount of money they had to pay, they were slightly fazed, but it was definitely within their range of payment. Everything was fine and dandy, and the boy went to university the following few months and ended up starting a career for himself as a pilot in one of the finest, highest quality schools. I had absolutely no problem with it, as I cherished that person just as much as my parents did. That was, of course, until the following year when my graduation finally came and I got admitted into some of the finest medical schools in the country. One problem is, medical schools are the highest in pay ranks. They're near impossible to get into and even more impossible to pay. When I informed my parents that I had been admitted to the universities that I got admitted to, I was expecting them to ask me what my options were and how I was going to go about sorting them and deciding which one I would go for, as that's always been my dream and they were aware of it. Instead, their faces expressed emotions far less joyous than expected. They told me that they were extremely sorry for their inability to pay for my tuition. Apparently, they had exasperated all of their financial capacities for college funds the previous year when they offered to pay for the prestigious university for the neighbor's son. Basically, my parents had given away my college funds to their neighbor's son because they were emotionally enticed in the moment and saw the light of their son flash in their eyes. Those were their literal words. Those literal words would mean I would have to spend the next few years of my life not studying, as I had always imagined and hoped, but working days in and nights out to provide the bare minimum for myself and pay for my college tuition, and not go for fancy prestigious medical school college instead. I did just that. The following few years were hell for me. I was very saddened by the events that had taken place, and I felt very undermined and robbed of my privileges. Nevertheless, I pushed through the next couple of years, and with the help of my parents, I started my journey towards becoming the doctor I've always wanted to be, and the doctor I've proudly been for the past couple of years. Now, I got my degree at the state university and started working a firm, and quite honestly, my life has been very stable and consistent, and I've been extremely happy and content with the events that led to the life I have now. I'm not sure what the neighbor's son's at in life, but whatever he may be, I'm extremely happy and content with the events that led to the life I have now. Update. I was contacted by my neighbor's son via a letter in which he informed me that he had plenty of emotions and things he would like to express to me, and he would like to meet and discuss them as soon as possible. I messaged him back letting him know what time and place suited me the most. We ended up meeting at a coffee shop a couple of days later, and we sat down to have a little brunch in which he informed me that he had always left with a feeling of guilt as his career didn't belong to him, and as though he had robbed me of an opportunity that he could have never provided for himself. He said that he was informed by his parents the following year that I had dropped out of the university and devoted most of my time to making money, which led him to assume that it was because of financial shortage, and he hasn't been able to shake off the mask of theft ever since. Realizing what he had caused in a sense, he offered to pay me back all the money that my parents had paid him all those years ago when he went to the university. And he said that he will always feel that his career didn't belong to him because he was presented on a silver platter. It doesn't feel as though he earned it, and instead it was just granted to him out of a pity or a reward for the bare minimum. After it was robbed from the hands of someone else, and that someone else being me, I had to sit there and listen to him with an aching heart and an uneasy consciousness as he insulted himself for something that wasn't his fault, but rather a thing that caused good in his life, which he didn't feel belonged to him. I let him know just how special he was to our family and how much he meant to the both of my parents. And what they did to him was not because they wanted to grant him his career on a silver platter, but rather to fulfill a dream that they would have loved to offer their son who passed away and left his sense of presence within him. Honestly, I felt very sorry for having envied him all of those years and thought badly of him at times. And seeing him so battered and begging to pay me back all that money just left an indent in me that will never be erased. I'm moving on with my life with the belief that things happen for a reason. From the moment we moved into our home and met this boy, to the one where I was sitting with him at brunch, as one of the most successful people I know thanks to my parents' money that was just meant for me and my brother, things just happen in the strangest of ways, and sometimes we just have to believe in the process and in the fact that things will always end up the way they're supposed to be. At least, that's the thought process that helps me sleep better at night. Next story. A month ago, my boyfriend's 30 male mother fell in the house in the middle of the night and broke her hip. Living in our house is me, 27 female, brother, his dad, mom and dad are divorced, and her. I don't know how old his parents are. I think they're both in their 60s. His mom and I have never had a good relationship. I think she's rude, manipulative, and verbally abusive. I've had plenty of issues with her. She had given away gifts that my boyfriend had gotten me and then verbally abused boyfriend and I over them. She locked my dog in her room away from me and left him scratching and crying at one side of the door while I was doing the same on the other side. Not long after she went into the hospital, I suffered a miscarriage, my second one this year. I didn't know she knew I was pregnant, but she asked boyfriend about the baby and he told her it died and we were sad. What followed was one of the nastiest text message threads I've ever read. She tore into my boyfriend over being awful and disgusting and saying how the baby suffered before they finally died, and I'm not fit to be a mother and he should make sure I'm on birth control so I stop killing her grandbabies. Basically, she's a real joy. She's been in the hospital for a month. They did surgery and placed pins and said they will not release her until she's able to take care for herself, get herself to the bathroom, etc. They want her to spend a few days in a rehab center before coming home. She is livid. Every day there's a new message from her to boyfriend and dad saying how abusive everyone is for making her stay there and somebody needs to go get her now. I do feel sorry for her as it is the holidays and she did have to spend Thanksgiving there, but we're trying everything to get her out in time for Christmas. Boyfriend has MS, which on bad days means he can barely get himself out of bed. He needs help to do everything. Some days he can barely stand up, so he obviously can't care for her. Dad works all day and, with only him and me working, can't afford to take time off. I guess she told the social worker that I would be available to help her so she could come home now. I said no, under no circumstance will I care for her. She's been nothing but horrible to me for 3 years, and I have enough on my plate with my boyfriend, our dogs, and now her dog. I have no doubt she'll be home for Christmas, so I'm not worried about that, but I do feel guilty that me saying no means she could be in there for another week or so. His dad is on my side and told the social worker that there is no way anybody in the home can care for her to the level she needs. Boyfriend is a little mad at me, so I'm feeling really guilty. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You were honest. There is nobody at home capable of caring for her at the level she needs. You and the dad have to work to support the family and thus cannot be home with her, and your boyfriend is not physically capable. This is completely out of your hands. The last thing you want is for this crazy lady to claim you were negligent in caring for her. No way should you make yourself responsible for her because there are a lot of terrible ways she can use it against you. Protect yourself. Not the a-hole. You cannot look after two people, you'll end up having caregiver fatigue. Besides, based on her personality, she would just be as hateful to you while providing for her care as she is now. Also, how are you supposed to work while also caring for two people? Physically not possible. She needs to suck it up and do rehab so she can return home. Next story. I, 32 male, and my wife, 27 female, are doing decently financially. I've been somewhat successful in my career. My wife works seasonally. She makes as much money as I do in a year in one summer every summer and does not work from October to March. She comes from a very poor family, whereas my background is still very modest. She has two sisters. One is 24 female and the other is 18 female. In August, 24 female wrecked her car and asked us for $1,000 to fix it. I was hesitant because my wife had loaned her money in the past that was never repaid. Her mother decides she will assume the responsibility for paying back half of the money and the sister the other half, so I agreed. We want to help within our means, and to the household, $1,000 is a lot of money. We were repaid $500 by her mother, but the 24 female sister has still yet to repay us anything. My wife got a call from her 18 female sister asking to borrow $600. My wife approached me with this as we do our best to make all decisions together. It became apparent that her mother had suggested to her sister to ask us to borrow money. This was very upsetting to me. I feel like her family views us as having a huge expendable income. We're living comfortably and have some money saved up, but definitely not in a position to be loaning out money regularly. My father always told me not to loan out money that I wasn't okay with not getting back. My wife agrees with me. We're on the same page as far as finances and what we're able to do. Here's where it gets a little more interesting. My wife's 18 female sister knew this large expense was coming and did nothing to save for it. My wife told her that it was irresponsible behavior and that she needed to stop relying on others to cover for her. Now my mother-in-law is saying that we just don't want to help her sister and that we dislike her. We brought up the fact that we have yet to be repaid from the last time we loaned money to 24 female. We weren't asking to be repaid at that moment. We understand it's the holiday season. We were just using that as evidence that we aren't comfortable loaning out money right now. Yet, we're being labeled as a-holes for helping one sister and not the other, and then bringing up the money right before Christmas. Are we a-holes? Let me see if I have this right. Mother-in-law has at least twice encouraged her daughters to borrow substantial sums from the third daughter. In the most recent case, when the oldest daughter pointed out that the youngest daughter was being financially irresponsible, mother-in-law immediately went on the attack, accused you and oldest daughter of playing favorites, and chastised you for pointing out the middle daughter hasn't repaid her portion of an even larger loan. Is that an accurate summary? If it is, then you might want to frame it that way for mother-in-law and tell her that the situation has made you reconsider the wisdom of loaning money to family and that you won't be doing it now or in the future. I strongly recommend against telling her that it is causing tension in your marriage. She's sure going to jump on that as evidence that you are the problem. That is, if you were a better person, then you would allow your wife to influence you to be generous with her family, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. First and foremost, it is your money and therefore your own choice what you do with that money. You've been kind enough to help out with the car situation, but you should not give any more out. If you haven't received any money back from her, then I would safely assume that she would not give this new loan back on top of what is already owed. Not only will she not pay you back, but if you lend her money again, she will really think that she has got you both now and that she can keep doing it. The fact that her mother even said to ask you for it is quite appealing to me. It's as though she thinks you both are a money bank for people just because you have a decent amount of money. I would say to tell her a firm no and make it clear you want your money back from the loan for the car and tell her that no more money will be getting loaned out. Next story. Hi, I'm 16 male and ever since I got my job, my parents have been making me give them half my paycheck for rent. I have 5 younger siblings and my parents said I had to start pulling my weight. It really sucks because they also want me to pay for stuff like new clothes and shoes. It was also impossible to save. I really want my own car and some for college. When I got a raise at my job, I decided not to tell them. My pay went from $8 an hour to $13 an hour. I was so stoked, but I knew my parents would start making me pay more, so I hid it. Because I chose to get paid by check, I just take it to the bank and cash it so my parents won't be able to see the direct deposit. I can only work 20 hours a week because of school, so before I could only save a little under $300 a month, but now I can save $600 a month. This has been going on for about 4 or 5 months. The other day, my mom found my savings and my parents confronted me. They could tell it was too much and made me show her my pay stub from the week before. To punish me for lying, they took $3,000 of the $4,000 I had saved. Now I'm back at square one and won't be able to save as much. Definitely not the a-hole. You worked for that money, it's yours. It would make sense if they asked you for a reasonable percentage for rent, but 50% is too much and now they're taking 75% of the extra that they didn't know about. That's way out of line. Maybe I'm overreacting, but this sounds like financial abuse. Hopefully someone here will know more than I do about the legalities, but of course it will depend upon where you live. Not the a-hole. Very toxic parenting. They basically just robbed you. Does your job have a way to pay you through a payroll card? It's a debit card they put your paycheck on. Ask if you're not sure. You could keep the money there until you're 18 and can get a bank account under your own name, or even get a lockbox and put the cash savings in there. Don't give them the key or code no matter what.